15th, 2026. That's right, you heard it right. 2,081 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room because he was a whistleblower. He was a whistleblower, a stellar soldier that would not stand by and let children be trafficked. To what end? To forced labor, to sexual exploitation, to organ harvesting. I kid you not. I can't make this stuff up. No. And also, he would not stand by with Glennon Oakley Jr. being the witness to election tampering with deadly force, right? The Walmart mass shooting that was used for several different reasons. Believe it or not, gosh, there's several different reasons, but the main reason, other than, distracting from Richard's reports, right? Whistleblower reports, money reasons, bond reasons, exploiting El Paso reasons. But the big reason, the big one, was to stop President Trump. They had to get Glennon Oakley Jr. out of the way. They had to get Richard Halliday out of the way. And they had to get President Trump out of the way. And they tried. They tried to get him out of the way. And when you look at the evidence for as long as we have, with every day for what, almost 6 years now, and analyzed it and documented it and filed it and added it to more incoming evidence and reanalyzing it, the evidence confirms that this was election tampering with deadly force against President Trump, who was auditing, who was investigating the borderland, wanting to put up a border wall, remember that? And auditing, arresting Jeffrey Epstein, remember that? And Maxwell, right? And also using his position as President of the United States with Bolsonaro of Brazil, because the pipeline reached down to Brazil. Remember Oprah pushing forth this, quote, John of God, close quote, that was a baby farmer, that was doing the worst type of crimes against women. And that was what Oprah was pushing. And Oprah was from Chicago, along with Obama from Chicago. And Obama loved Beto O'Rourke, who was Donald Trump's, President Trump's opponent. And Beto O'Rourke's family ranch is right beside Jeffrey Epstein's family ranch, right by Santa Fe, where Oprah has a house, where the Obamas like to go quite often. That was the other end of the pipeline. And the pipeline made a detour, right, out to the island, Little St. James, and to Iran, which is the gateway into China. And then back again. That's the pipeline both ways. which includes, of course, Mexico and all of the criminal trafficking, the fuel theft, the money laundering, the embezzlement, the election tampering with deadly force, also right now, going on right now in Mexico, in Chihuahua, Mexico, because of the mayor race, because of the gubernatorial race there. So they did not like it that Richard had a backbone, that also that he could see and he could put together what was going on. He was quite bright, very bright, a stellar soldier. He saw what was going on, and he had the genes, the intelligence, the IQ to document it and to file it. And they didn't like him for it. Matter of fact, they targeted him and they murdered him. They forcibly removed him from the barracks. They took him down to the basement room, a very ugly room. You could tell the leadership was very poor because the filth. And this, it was the arms room, which is a soundproof room. And that's where they took his life. And because the El Paso cartel, with the alliance with the CJNG cartel, had infiltrated with their narco philanthropy, quote unquote, meaning their drug money, their blood money, had compromised so many, including Richard's chain of command, to the FORSCOM general. I mean, FORSCOM General Michael Garrett totally compromised. 4-star general, y'all. 4-star general, Marine general, John Kelly, even a Gold Star father, but totally compromised. And also a conspirator and treasonous. Well, they're all treasonous because they're all giving aid and comfort to the enemy of the United States, which is the CJNG cartel. Of course, you have General McConville, James McConville. What a dirty man. What a dirty, dirty man. You have Donna Martin. She was a provost, the provost general. Totally compromised. And of course, you have the commander, the commanders of Fort Bliss and Richard's chain of command. And so, we know what happened to Richard. We know who killed Richard. We know who's responsible for it. We didn't know at the beginning because at the beginning we were lied to. Well, we weren't contacted. We had to contact the Army. We were told we had to do the investigation because otherwise they couldn't help. They threw Richard off the rolls so that we would have no one to go to. We were in no one's jurisdiction. We would call everybody and say, oh, well, he's not in our jurisdiction. We can't help you. And it was because of our relentless crying out on social media and people sharing because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. But it was because of people sharing. I think we had over 40,000 shares on one of our posts, and the military were forced to put Richard back on the rolls. What they have done was an act of war, and worse. It was treason. And we have, for almost 6 years, documented, investigated, documented, and filed. And we're ready for our lawsuit now. The time is right. Because we know, and we have the evidence, the breaking news comes in every day, more and more evidence. So we could continue collecting, right, all the evidence. But we have enough. We've had enough for a while. But when you're facing a very corrupt Department of Justice and a very corrupt FBI, it's infiltrated. That's why it's not working right. And that's why you see the administration right now, a year and a half in, still with the Department of Justice and the FBI. I mean, the amount of employees is huge. And if you, who is good, who is not? Who is good, who is not? Well, we know that Connell Wetton's no good. He's still there. And El Paso, why they haven't gotten rid of him, we filed already. The evidence is overwhelming that he should be arrested. But the infiltration is huge, and I don't know the strategy that they're using to bypass or force even the bad elements, individuals that are inside the system to do their job. Because, even the Bible says an unjust judge, if you nag and nag and nag and nag and present the evidence, then they are forced to give justice. They are driven to give justice. So I don't know the strategy. I do know that with the Charlie Kirk case, it is open for everyone to see that there is a major problem within our law enforcement, within our Department of Justice, and all of these workers, just because there's mutiny, there's mutiny, there's just to stop the leaks. What about the file tampering? People are like, where are the files? Where are the files? The files, they have been so tampered with. These people stopped at nothing. Look at the 2028 stamp. They even got messy with Montoya. They've done it so much they get messy. They get stupid. It's so obvious. And like our open records, you wouldn't even believe it. Try doing some open records and you'll see how messy the records are because they've been tampered with. And we know that Richard's CID report, you know, volumes, was so tampered with. And that's a big part of this because we have to go through it and we have to analyze it all, what's true, what's not true. So there's a big problem. But we've overcome it, and we're ready. And we're ready to do the lawsuits. We're ready to drive them to, one, give us our son's remains, and two, to give us accountability. And the whole political shift is demanding that. Is demanding that. The media, even the social media, is so crazy right now. Because people you thought you could trust are showing their true colors. Where they are invested in, I guess, because follow the money, follow the money. It's always about the money, and a lot of it's dirty. Dirty cartel trafficking money, embezzled money, money laundered money. So, you know, you got to be really always on the lookout, always asking questions. And there's so much still, there's so much fraud still, that you can't address it all at once because it would bring down the economy. I think it would bring down the economy. So, what President Trump is doing, addressing first the major fraud that was going over the border, the USAID, remember that, the crime designating the criminals as what they are, foreign terroristic organizations. And then he even domestic terroristic he called them something else, and I just put that up. And um but he really legally laid it all out from day one, and then started getting evidence. How did he do that? He extradited over 100 cartel leaders. And a lot of those cartel leaders were the finance, the business arm of the cartels. You notice he didn't extradite La Diabla, the butcher with kitchen knives, teaching 16-year-olds how to do an illegal cesarean, praying that the baby would survive, and then taking organs and leaving the mother's lifeless body, dumping it in a place like Plenitude Crematorium or Del Carmen. He didn't extradite her because she's a total criminal, doing a very nasty job. That was enough. But the ones that have the books, now those need to be extradited, and he did that. Extradited El Chapo, El Mencho died. He died. Otherwise, I think he would have been um, extradited. What about Madero? What about now uh, Ismael El Mayo Zapata is a little different story because he was like forcibly, not legally. He was kidnapped, really. So there's power play in there. But he's in American custody. And mad as hell, we hear. Mad as hell. And when people are mad from being betrayed from, like, let's say it was the El Paso cartel, then I think he has a story to tell. And then don't forget the Puerto Rican governor. She got a pardon. I'm sure she had to do a lot of talking before she got that pardon. Remember, she didn't allow all of the hurricane aid to go out to the Puerto Ricans. She kept that because President Trump had sent that aid to Puerto Rico, and they didn't want the Puerto Ricans to be grateful to President Trump. Yeah. So I think her information was probably pretty valuable. So valuable, she could earn a pardon. He's done all this and at the same time find where the fuel theft was. Like with Maduro. Because Venezuelan, right there, there's a lot of oil there. A lot of oil. And oil earns a lot of money because we all need it. And it's so dependable. I mean, you even need oil if you have an electric car, don't you? Because what's going to make the power for the electricity? I mean, um, I guess coal maybe, but I think it's the oil. We need the oil, and he's securing the oil so that our economy can sustain the hit of turning off the blood money, the cartel money, the narco money. I think, the prices are high. Yeah, they are high. But can you imagine if we wanted justice and that whole illegal economy was being turned off? We would be suffering so bad right now, far more than what we are. Far more. I don't think we're suffering so much. Yes, there are some that lower income. This is very tough because this was an act of war. But we had a lot of people depending on the US aid, the embezzlement, the money laundering, the Jeffrey Epstein pipeline that was huge because it was all the criminal trafficking money, the illicit money. And it made them do things that I don't think they would otherwise do. And I read through Jay Polin's file today. I read through David Park's file today. I haven't gotten through Michael Ruggiero's yet. I mean, of course, Sean Bernabe's and all that, all of them. But this is, the people right there. Richard's first sergeants, his captain, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick. Found some other names there that were very interesting. As time goes by, everything kind of comes together, and you're like, oh, I know who that person is now. I know who that Terry is right now. So those files are absolutely evidence of treason. I even wrote some of them down and posted it. Seditious conspiracy, material support for CJNG, RICO, you're talking about treason, life. You're talking about the death sentence here. Minimum for one thing, 20 years. Minimum. 20 years to life, 20 years for life, death sentence. These are not little offenses. And these offenses were not just against Richard, not just against our military, not just against President Trump, which means the United States, but for the world. And you see that. How we were being so exploited. How the borders were being so exploited. And the people in all these countries. And I really believe the Iranians are totally exploited. They're caught. And I think, and I'm pretty sure, that that's why President Trump has been so patient and very deliberate where he has bombed there. He hasn't carpet bombed them. He hasn't double bombed them, like he did like one bridge, but the rest of it was all military, very military specific places where they bombed, not civilian, unlike other presidents. Because I know that something is up in Iran, I think, because they are so rich with oil and China needs their oil. And that radio communication with that voice, I was like, wow. And I know that we've been exploited. I know Mexico has been exploited. So it's not crazy to assume that Iran has been exploited, infiltrated. What I mean by it is infiltrated and exploited. So, and to want the control of fuel in the world is a good thing, because otherwise you just become a slave. You just become a slave. We need that oil. And we need the money, $39 trillion in debt. And I remember when I was younger and I had a credit card debt, once we paid it off, we said never again. Debt makes you a mean person. It makes you a mean person. You're not as nice when you have debt. So 39 trillion makes a lot of people unhappy. And those that are like the El Paso cartel, right? The El Paso cartel, the narco philanthropists, they are not happy. Let me tell you, all that exploiting, all that illegal enrichment, they are miserable people, y'all. You would think that they, with that enrichment, they would be like joyful. No, these are miserable people. Absolutely miserable. Um, too much to carry. So, reading through Jay Polin, oh man, what a jerk. What a, oh gosh. I want to say more. Oh God, what a traitor. What a traitor. I don't, I have to hold back so hard. But what a traitor. And Jay Polin, with the rest of those traitors, conspired together to conduct a smear campaign, not only a smear campaign, but absolutely to obstruct justice, to attack us, to threaten us. I mean, they conspired to do a operation against us, the family, and against the media, and using the media, giving the media false narratives, and then tampering with records. This is Richard's chain of command. Richard was what, 19, 20? In the palm of their hand, they had a 19, 20-year-old. He had just turned 21 when they took his life. This was his chain of command that did this. That with taxpayer money, under oath, to defend the Constitution, to take all those creeds, right? Do the creed, no soldier left behind, the NCO creed, all of that. They betrayed all of that, became totally mutinous in order to protect the La Diablas. The La Diablas, the El Menchos, the Duartes, the De La Vegas, the Fosters, the Hunts, the whole Jeffrey Epstein pipeline. That's who they were in with. On taxpayer money. Under oath. In our uniforms. Wearing our ranks, our uniforms, our ranks with our equipment on our bases with our volunteer sons and daughters. They need to face the death penalty. because they were at our border and they allowed so many children, so many women, so much of our economy, our soldiers, our president, our people, our prices. You want to know why prices are high? You look to traders like these. These are the traders that allow the embezzlements. You know, embezzlement, stealing government funds. Billions, billions. Then we have bad roads and the trucks have problems and the prices go up. Farmers can't get, well, they attack the farmers. They rather embezzle the money. They rather have the fraud than give us the infrastructure that would keep prices low, because it would be a well-oiled machine, right? The economy would be flowing and working properly. But no, because of all of these traders and leaders that are weak on crime, and that includes even ministers and priests that are weak on crime, because they have a place, because there's separation between church and state. What does that mean? On authority, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't speak out about crime and take action in your authority, in your jurisdiction, be it in church or state, against crime. And we have so many infiltrators and that Mormon faction, this Mormon faction that I can't ignore, because it is right there in all the evidence, and all the evidence. And we see that in these cases, leadership weak on crime, or even colluding, conspiring, and even with the criminals doing the crime, even leading the crime. That's what makes prices high. Is all the fraud, waste, and abuse. And then in this case, with deadly force. With deadly force. So Jay Polin, when you read through his file, I'm telling you, you're oh, God. Oh man. It's so disgusting. And David Park, oh my God. So disgusting. What, y'all, these are the worst humans. Because they impersonate an officer, they impersonate an NCO. They go through it all, but their loyalty has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So they cannot have their retirement, you see, their benefits, because they were never that. Total liars, operators, deception operators. Can you call them spies, double agents? Double agents? I'll leave that to the lawyers. Roddick, oh my gosh, oh, he's the worst of them. He is the worst, boy. Well, I shouldn't say the worst of them. Sean Bernabe, they're all so bad. I mean, how can you say this demon is worse than this demon, you know? They're all ghouls and demons. Um, and of course the 4-star generals, and of course, you know, and they wear our uniforms, and it's just the worst, and we have to clean that up. So you're like, what about the FBI? What about the CIA? What about the Department of Justice? What about our military? What about our military? It has to be cleaned up. And that's why this lawsuit's so important. Because it was the military that was compromised, that targeted President Trump, that is responsible, that murdered our son. Not only murdered him, but stole his body, dismembered it, profited off of it, trafficked it to Mexico, and then attacked our family. Yeah. It's time. It's time we get our patriotism back, our loyalty back, our courage back, our backbone back. We've been so weak, especially as Christians, we've been so weak, like impotent. I like that. I like that description, just so impotent, like, oh, we can't do anything. We have to be, you know, that's why I'm an Anglican. I don't go into that all left behind stuff. I think it's all very, very weak. Very, nothing, it's not theological. We can't wait. We have been given power already. And that's what Easter was all about. And just to say, oh, I can't do anything, come Lord Jesus. No. We are given a commission to establish justice, God's justice on earth as it is in heaven. And until he does come again in glory, not as a savior, he's already our savior, but to come back in glory as the King of Kings. Christ is King. All knees shall bow. That's my faith. And my faith tells me I have to work until he comes, serve him until he comes, establish justice until he comes. Not to save me, he already did that, but in glory, for beauty and glory, saith the Lord. For beauty and glory, in a celebration like no other, and all knees shall bow. That's my faith. And all of this hoeing and humming about, oh, did you see the icon, the Byzantium style icon? I really like Byzantium a lot. The Byzantium style icon of President Trump with the sword. I had to work really hard to get that sword up with the AI, you know, put everything in just so, well, it was near everything I wanted. But to have that kind of art, to be a saint, is something that we should be so proud to be. To be as Christ, What would Jesus do? I don't know how many bracelets I've had and how many bracelets I've seen passed out. What would Jesus do? We're supposed to be like Jesus. We're supposed to be like Jesus. Absolutely. And then people get shocked. Oh, you're being compared to Jesus. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Because Jesus lives within me. We are the temple. That's my faith. So that's you want to know who killed Richard? Well, our evidence shows Dallas Wayne Hart. CID Tavita Nusa. Aiding. Solomona Nusa. Oh, yeah, because you got CID, then you've got mortuary operations to get rid of the body, to falsify paperwork. Then you've got the daddy and the VA and IDS payable. What? And death benefits? Okay. That is access to files. That is access to tampering. You got Mama with her close relationship with the DES Thomas Kane that can turn off cameras, tamper with the CCTV footage, tamper with or get the right gate open at the right time. Then you've got the chain of command, getting rid of evidence, panicking on a motorcycle, getting rid of evidence. Let's get rid of this. And the dominoes go on from there. So now you know why they had to conspire together and their online presence to smear Richard. And Richard, and I posted that up. Richard, wasn't a problem. He was they were the problem because of their cartel connection. So, yeah, I hope you share those posts about our beautiful son, about our beautiful soldier. I really hope that you will share that. And everything we posted about him, yeah, there he is. And his promotions with waivers and his test scores that were just, well, he's a genius. Those are not my words, even though I know he was homeschooled, and so I was the teacher or the facilitator. And so, yeah, I was told for the military, he was a genius. He was absolutely one they look out for. Black belt in karate, distinguished honor graduate, good with PT, great scores, analytical, moral. I added that one. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Sergio, for coming on and your prayers. And please share all this information. And I will be back tomorrow. And I can't stress enough the sharing. the sharing and telling people, not just on social media, but sharing the story at church, sharing the story with your neighbors. I think that's really important, especially for our pursuit with this lawsuit. Um, Nothing is monetized, so that's not the motive. The motive is absolutely one, to get our son's remains back, two, to get accountability, 100%. So, and those are, they're not impossible. And your sharing really helps that. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow.